We've had 3 apologies, Richard Ralph from the town team, Councillor Dan Friend and Councillor Sue Chandler. Councillor Chandler did say that she would send an email with her various updates which are on the agenda, but I haven't had anything, so I think we're going to have trouble when we get to that part of the agenda. Are the minutes, I sent round the minutes.
Yes, the minutes are fine.
Good, and the minutes are accepted from the last meeting.
Yeah.
They did actually go as part of this group's report to the town council, to the last town council meeting, so the town council knows what we've been doing. I don't know if there are any matters arising from the minutes which are not on the main agenda.
I think they were on the agenda.
Yes. So, following up action points from the last meeting, the ramp between the Quay Path and Ainsley Court courtyard, I, as per the minutes of the last meeting, sent to the town council the minutes of our last meeting, my letter which I drafted to go to the Sandwich Medical Practice, to ask them about the timetable for when they would vacate their butchery premises, which would free up at least 2 parking spaces. I've looked at it actually. It looks like you could get 3 small cars into the parking space that is currently at the end of Harlett Street, which says doctors only or whatever it's, and asking them what their timetable is. And I did actually, and the council accepted that letter, and I did actually sign it, and hopefully it's gone off. I signed it at the end of last week, because I was away for a fortnight, so I couldn't sign it. But anyway, now I've signed it, and hopefully it's gone to the medical practice. It's addressed to the practice manager, and we'll see what she has to say about when they're closing the butchery and relocating the new premises which are coming on by leaps and bounds, as far as I can see. And that would free up, as I say, 2 or 3 parking spaces, which hopefully would compensate the local residents and visitors for the loss of 1 parking space, which is entailed if we develop this route from the quay into the town via Ainsley Court, because people will have, as we've checked with you, Chris, they would have to negotiate across Strand Street and round the corner into Love Lane, and that would entail the loss of the parking space. So if we can get the doctor's parking space, that should work. However, I was then rather surprised to receive an email from the chief executive saying that the tender for the ramp was not really appropriate for Sandwich Town Council, that we should ask the Ainsley Court Residents Company to apply to the Tollbridge Fund, which she said would be quicker, to have a ramp built. Well, I immediately replied to that, saying I didn't think the residents company was actually doing us a favour and working with us, and this wasn't appropriate to ask them to do that, and that there should be alternative ways, and that one of the alternative ways I suggested was using Section 137 money. The reason that was given was that by the chief executive for going that route, asking the residents company to apply, is because it isn't actually a public footpath, although There is a name given to that route. It's called Ives Gate. If you look up on the wall, on the building that faces onto Strand Street at the Strand Street end, it says Ives Gate, and it's paved in a different way. And when I first started talking to the directors of the Ageley Court Residence Company, one of them said to me, "We've always thought that is actually a public footpath, and we're quite happy for people to use it." But then he said that they thought now that it probably isn't actually a public footpath. And apparently, if it's not a public footpath, then we would, by asking Sandwich Town Council to pay for the ramp, would be spending public money on a private piece of land. And that's why they suggested that we apply to the Tollbridge Fund, or they apply to the Tollbridge Fund. Anyway, I was away for that town council meeting, and the chief executive, or rather the responsible finance officer, made a report to the town council suggesting that they should apply to the Ageley Court Residence Company should apply to the Tollbridge Fund. And I wrote a response to that, which I think I copied to you, saying I don't think that's appropriate at all. And that the Disability Access Strategy Working Group, namely us, would discuss this. So I wrote to Councillor Chandler when she said she couldn't come to this meeting, to ask her to give us some advice about how we get that Ives Gate pathway declared a public footpath, because that's a Kent County Council matter. And I haven't had any response. So I don't know quite what we do now. And also I have no idea whether we're quarried or not as a city. But I would like to talk about this, because it's a worry, you know. I mean, I just feel thwarted at every move, and sometimes quite unnecessarily so. And it can't be that complicated a matter, can it?
Well, what did she wrote back something, didn't
Did she?
At 6
Oh,
minutes past 1.
I haven't had that, sorry.
She's written back, but personally, it sounds very humble.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I haven't had that. I'm just looking at it. Okay.
So she's saying, I don't think we even enter into any permissive path agreements anymore, and probably have no more than a handful left across the county, which were drawn up in the 1900s. We don't really need to be involved. All they would need to do is sign the route with such wording as permissive route. We have no intention of dedicating this path as a public right-of-way under the Highways Act of 1980, and this right can be withdrawn at any time.
All right.
If they're adamant that they want to dedicate the route, though, the site as a publicly maintainable highway, then this is more complex procedure they can enter into under Section 25, creation by the agreement order, or a Section 26 creation order. This would be an order drawn up with them and our legal team, which would ask them to fund the cost for, once the order has been certified, the public footpath will be there forever, or until they apply to have it extinguished, which will be another lengthy procedure and cost.
Okay, well, it sounds as though if Sandwich Town Council were willing to fund a notice that says permissive route, we have no intention of dedicating this path as a public right-of-way under the Highways Act 1980, and this right can be withdrawn at any time. And that can go up as a notice on a building along Ives Gate, problem solved.
But that last paragraph, which she says we would also be asking them to set out the route at their cost, to put in our specification, which will include the paving and now I'm assuming that she means if they go down the second path of making it a legal right of way for everyone, that's what they would have to, they'd have to pay for the ramp as well.
Yes, because they would be responsible for
Yeah.
future maintenance.
But if they just put the notice up, I'm
Yes.
assuming this means that
we can
just go ahead.
can ask STC, go back to STC and say, please fund the ramp.
Yes, and get a quote
Yes.
for the ramp.
Yes, exactly.
Which would be simple.
I think that's the problem solved, actually. Well, so the recommendation from this committee is that we go back to Sandwich Town Council.
Yes.
I'll get it on the agenda for the next meeting, which is at the end of this month, that we've had a response from the PROW officer, which I presume means Public Rights of Way officer, that if there was a notice saying permissive route, etc., this would be perfectly satisfactory, and ask Sandwich Town Council to send out a tender for the building of this ramp.
The notice that was put up there would also need funding, which
Yes.
I don't think we can ask the residents of Ainsley
No,
Court
of
to
course we
fund either.
can't.
So
That would have to come out of
they'd
Sandwich.
have to agree that we could do it,
I mean,
and then that would come out of
Yes,
the Sandwich
of-
Town Council's
of the disability
Yes.
access
Yeah,
budget, which
budget.
we've got just over £2,000
Yes.
or a bit more left in it for this financial year. And then we'll get some tenders. The one slight question that I have is about who is then responsible for the maintenance of the ramp. And I think that will have to be the Sandwich Town Council again. I mean, I can't think it will be very expensive to maintain it.
If it's
Once it's done properly,
It
people's
shouldn't be-
feet don't do that much damage. It's not like you've got lorries driving over it.
No.
So,
Well, mobility scooters.
I'm trying to say about it.
Well, you know what I mean. Really.
Yeah, but
I mean, there will be some wear and tear over the years, won't there?
A lot of years, because the rubber tyres and the
Yeah.
shouldn't damage
Yes.
pavement slabs.
I suppose the only query you'd have is that the ramp is coming off the Riverside Path,
Yes.
which is KCC path, and it's joining that building.
Yes.
So will STC then say that this is going to be a KCC responsibility
But
in terms of...
when we did the site visit, did the chap from Ainsley Court said instead of starting the ramp at the edge of the building where it joins the path, step back so the ramp starts where the step starts, so the ramp itself wouldn't be touching what is
Yes.
effectively the public right of way.
Yeah, but I'm thinking about the steepness of the ramp that
Yes,
would
it
do
could be
that.
quite steep.
Because it could be quite steep, couldn't it? Because those steps were...
There's only the one step, isn't it?
Well, I think what we have to do is, presumably STC knows contractors who can do this kind of work, and they will have to ask those sorts of questions. And we'll have to engage with the Ainsley Court residence company directors, because actually the chap that we met with, he seemed really quite knowledgeable,
Yeah.
and I think that might be one of his areas of expertise anyway. Obviously the tender document will have to be written with those kinds of considerations in mind, about steepness and where it should begin and where it should end and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But anyway, we need agreement in principle
Yeah.
that Sandwich Town Council agrees to put out tenders and also agrees to be responsible for the capital cost of building the thing, and arranging it and so on, and talking to KCC. So is that agreed?
Yeah.
I'm not taking minutes at the moment, but yes, I'm not terribly all organised here. I should have got my laptop. I'm sorry about that. Anyway, that's very helpful from Councillor Chandler.
She says all other matters remain ongoing.
Yes, which means presumably that she hasn't had any response.
Because one of the issues we raised, if we could solve the problem of the access, the pathway, was whether or not there could have been some line that was painted into Strand Street
Yes.
that indicated that people could cross there. So it's not crossing as such, but indicated that there was pedestrian priority on that section. And
there's nothing about, because the double yellows have been done, and there was a suggestion that the road marking between the Barbican and the toll bridge would be renewed while the double yellows are being done, and that hasn't been done. No. So we've not got any further with that. I think the way I'm going to write the minutes is to look at your recording, Christina, because I'm sorry I haven't been very well organised today.
And both of those are fairly key to making it safe for people to cross. Yes. Well, certainly across where the toll bridge is.
Yes.
That's got to be really clear.
Yes.
And then, if it was possible in Strand Street, I'm sure you have to apply for something, whether it comes under the HIT report.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think the top priority is getting this ramp built.
Yes.
Because once that's built, the logic has to be that we then have a clear route, clearly marked, clearly signed, from the quay into town. So I will minute that, and
yeah, and we could perhaps ask Sue if what happened to the yellow line, the repainting of the yellow lines. I think we should. It didn't happen when the other yellow lines were there. Is it on their list?
Absolutely. Now, if we move to item 5, which is the Highway Improvement Plan update, and I've now gone. I thought I'd sent did I send a screenshot of the?
No, I know the highway.
Well, I was somewhat mystified. I'm chair now of the Heritage and Townscape Committee, and I didn't raise it then and there, but the Chief Executive appended the current Highway Improvement Plan, which I didn't really understand. Some of it was in blue and some of it was in yellow, and there was no indication as to what each of these different colours meant. But 3 of the items referred to accessibility, and one of them referred to a dropped curb between Strand Street and Pillory Gate. And again, I didn't understand any of those because they weren't things that we talked about, and I just didn't know what their status was or how they got onto the highway improvement, because the Chief Executive said that we couldn't actually add things to the highway improvement plan, that there were already 83 items on it. But these seem to be new things, and I
didn't. I heard what was said at that meeting. I didn't understand it either, because the highway improvement plan, the survey took place in 2018. We had to write a report that dealt with all the conditions that residents had come up with and all the ideas, and it was from those ideas that if you like, each point was raised that then became part of that plan. So my understanding about that plan is to start with that you can only do, KCC will only take one issue per year. But what was interesting was that I thought that my thoughts were that that was because those were the ones that KCC then paid for.
Right.
Now, what seemed to come out the other evening was that, yes, they'll only look at one item, but the cost of that item still comes back to Sandwich Town Council,
Yes.
which is outrageous, actually.
Yes.
Because, and we are a parish, Sandwich Town is treated as a parish in the same way that Worth is a parish.
Yes, exactly.
So, but we are only entitled to one, as Worth would be too.
Yes.
So, to me, this is a ludicrous situation anyway.
Yes.
But the list, my understanding was that if something else went onto the list, it could be added to, but it would have to be agreed that it was taking priority over something else that was already there, which is possibly why the disability issues have become more important than some of them further down. But then I did hear her also say that we couldn't add anything to the list.
Yes, I couldn't understand. I have to talk to her and find out what on earth this was all about.
But did the issue about the drop curbs, was that put onto the HIP report at the point at which we met way back, the first meeting we ever had, the second meeting we ever had, did that come up then as something that when Richard Ralph was here, he said, well, if this is really important, this is a disability issue that we want solving, can we put it onto the, can it be replace something on the HIP report? And at that point, the CEO was attending meetings, and so was that the point at which those were lifted and put on? And of course some of those become irrelevant because we found other ways round.
Yes, well, I did tell you about the drop curb between Strand Street and Pillory Gate, because that's not where we want the drop curb.
No. No.
I need to talk to her about it.
Yeah.
And we'll see what it's all about and why some are in blue and some are in yellow. I didn't understand that either. But no doubt it will be made clear.
So some are in one colour because they were agreed that they could be done, but they hadn't actually been done. Whereas now the double yellow lines, with the exception of the area where Reeve's talking about, all the other yellow lines have now been done, painted. So where does that go? Does that mean they come off that list totally as done, and we move down to the next level?
Yes, I don't know.
But that's also on the town team agenda for Richard, Ralph and I to perhaps meet with her, but we should...
Okay, well, perhaps we could combine.
That would be useful. If
Yes,
Richard can't, I can meet with you.
Yes.
Yeah. Because Richard and I went through the list originally to try and put some priorities in it. Then he went and sat with Amanda Jane to get the final version of that, and for her to put that list together.
Okay. Well, I think if the three of us could go and meet with the chief executive and try and get to the bottom of this, because it may be that the drop curb at Pillory Gate could be dropped. I mean, I've no idea, but anyway, we need to find out.
Because also at that point you had the drop curb outside the pharmacy and Boots too, and that's been dropped since then, hasn't it? So it's possible that there are things on there that you no longer require.
Yes. Okay.
Sorry, Claire, did you get the email I sent to you this morning about, I found a thing in Ashford. Sorry,
yes.
Carol,
Can we come to that?
Yeah.
Under any other business?
Yeah,
because there are two other items I want to look at under any other business. Item 6, additional member of the working group. I wrote to Albert Treadle invited him to join the group, but I never got a reply. And I sent him this agenda, and I haven't heard anything.
Okay,
Could you
give
talk
a
to
bit
him
of a
about
prod,
it?
yeah.
Yes.
Would have
Thank
gone into
you.
his junk mail, I suppose, if we didn't know.
Yes, it could have done.
Oh.
Because he did actually write to me, I think. I think he wrote to me.
Well, when I spoke to him, he sounded quite keen.
Yes, well, it would be useful, and you know, it'd be
Yeah.
nice to have
Well,
a few more
just
people.
an extra
An
scooter
extra
user,
thought.
as
Exactly.
much as anything. So it's a different, and it's going to sound a bit sort of big-headed. You probably experienced it when you came out with me. But I'm a bit gung-ho with my scooter. Oh yeah, I can do that. Whereas some other people are just like Claire and you sort of, not sure
No, I
on
was
this.
used to.
When you're sitting at this sort of an angle and going, trying to traverse someone's ramp into their property. Oh yeah, that's fine. I can scoot across that.
The other thing though, Chris, is that you are a Sandwich resident. So
Yes,
you're
visitors.
very well
Sort of
aware
know
of
where
the
it
roads
is.
and what you possibly can risk, which we all do sometimes when
Yeah.
you're crossing a road. Whereas a visitor into the town
Yeah.
wouldn't have a clue. They would be really reluctant
Yes.
to cross it,
Yes.
and to,
Yes.
you know, to access some of these.
Yes. And actually, the steepness, you
Yeah.
don't realise it, the steepness of the path down the side of Fellowship Walk, well, down Fellowship Walk, it's steep. And even steeper is the ramp onto the quay. I mean, that's a
Yes.
terrifying angle. And there we would expect
Even
this.
more fun when it's icy.
Yeah.
I had a go at that. It was brilliant fun. I couldn't get back up. Came down quite nicely with just no power I needed. Trying to get back up, and then I had to come round the road.
So yes, so if you could talk to, is it
Yep,
Bert or
Albert.
Albert? That would be good. So we've got 3 other items on AOB. 2 of them came up at town tea. One is the availability of disabled toilets at this end of the town, which was actually something that had not occurred to me. I hadn't sort of worked it out. The only disabled toilet is at the quay. For visitors, well, anybody who comes to the events, they're mostly in this part of the town. And to get from this part of the town, if you're disabled particularly, to that end, is a business.
Not only that, I know that those toilets are often locked.
Yes.
So the access to them, forget the disabled toilets, to any of those toilets, is a business sometimes. Because we've been down there wintering, and people will be saying, well, I can't get in, because you've got to use your credit card to get in. It's not cash. So you've got to use that, and then the number plate doesn't always, the number on it doesn't work. People haven't got a clue. And we've seen people with young children as well trying to get access to the toilets. And it's wrong. They should be open. And of course they close anyway at certain times in the evening. And so anyone who is going out for something to eat or just having a wander around the town, they have no access to toilets at all, and they've got no access to disability toilets.
This is what I've always suspected, that it is actually very difficult to get into those toilets.
Yeah,
And I'm always told, oh, well, you just need a credit card.
Yeah,
But from your observation, people get into a muddle about
Yes.
it, or they don't have a credit card.
or it doesn't work. So you've got,
So you use your credit card or debit card, and it still doesn't
and
work.
it still doesn't work. And we see it time and time again. And I have to say that was why I campaigned, kept creating a fuss when COVID was first around, and we were told to take a walk, because you were getting families walking, mums and dads with children, and the elderly were trying to go around and wanting to stop to go to the loo. And you couldn't get into the toilets at all at one point. So they did eventually capitulate and they opened them up again, but...
With an attendant.
that was part of the problem, and I think this is why this new system was put in, so they didn't have to have attendants there. But it isn't good, and people don't want to use their, I think some credit cards, if you're using it for under a certain value, do they get a charge on it or something? Yeah, so yeah,
Oh, really?
so they don't want to use it.
I see.
It is an issue. It's an issue in general, but there's also the issue that there isn't a disabled toilet this end of the town. And even if the Guildhall did have one, well, the Guildhall isn't open all the time, so what would be the point? And yes, up here, got to come up in the lift. If the Guildhall doors are shut, well then you can't access it.
And at the weekend, of course, it is
Of course.
shut.
So that's
I suppose there's always the co-op.
The what?
The co-op, they've got nice toilets there.
Say it again.
Co-op.
The co-op.
The co-op.
They've got, but then really you've got to go in and pay for something. So again,
they don't
just be praised.
actually stop if someone needs to
No.
go. They're very very good.
But not all. I mean, if I were a visitor to this town, A, I didn't know where the co-op was.
No.
B, I would be worried whether they've got toilets which I could use. So it wouldn't automatically.
And I think they only had toilets because at one point they had couldn't you go and get snacks to eat?
yeah, they had
like
a little snack bar
snack
which
bar.
was on the left-hand
Yes.
side
Yeah.
by the toilets.
And they had to have toilets because for
Yes.
that reason.
Okay.
Yeah, they had the
I think this is an important issue. I mean, it's interesting when you look at the responsibilities of parish councils. There are only two. One is public conveniences, and the other is the allotments. So this is clearly a responsibility of the town council. So I will take it as chair of Heritage and Townscape. I'll bring it to the Heritage and Townscape Committee. I'm sorry it's so bureaucratic. As an issue which really needs to be looked at in general, but also with reference to disability access. And then it'll go to the town council, and then we'll just have to see. I mean, it may well cost money. We might have to go back to an attendance system.
Yeah.
But even with attendance, you can't have them, 24/7. So, there would have to be some alternative way of accessing.
At the moment, I think the attendants actually just because I don't know whether they've outsourced that, but they must go into clean and unblock all.
Yes. No, I think there is somebody here,
Yeah.
working here, whose responsibility that
Yeah.
is, but I can't be certain because we haven't seen the,
You still don't have the.
no, we don't know what people are contracted
I
to do.
don't understand that at all.
Yeah. So that's the first action point. That's for me.
And sorry, we were talking about the facility of extra toilets, mobile toilets when there were festivals.
Yes.
Is there a disabled mobile toilet that we know of?
You can get them because at county show, ploughing matches, village fetes, there's a portaloo that's about that sort of size square.
So it could be that because getting a disabled toilet built, I can see it's going to take another couple of years, because these toilets out here are not very nice anyway, and so in a way they probably think perhaps they should be revamped. But in the meantime, if we had to put one, would they pay for a toilet, a portable one, to at least sort of satisfy the issues of people at this end of the town who were disabled?
Yes. So a portable one could go up in the cattle market car park, for example.
Yeah.
Yes. That is something that we need to
Have a look at.
Yes. Yes. Actually, I'm not convinced it needs to come to Heritage and Townscape before it goes to the town council. It should probably just go straight to the town council. And okay. Second item of AOB is a suggestion from a Sandwich resident that there should be a dropped curb at the bus stop, which is at the end of the footpath that runs from the crescent off the Dover Road to the bus stop on the bypass, and that there should be a dropped curb at the bypass end. Actually, I've never quite understood the point of that.
Well, the bus stop has been there. We had difficulty identifying where it was exactly.
I know exactly where it is.
Yeah, and that bus stop is apparently quite often used.
Is it? I've never seen anybody stand there.
But the problem is that anyone getting on or off, especially with all the housing and the building that's going on, anyone getting on and off there could not, because they couldn't access the bus stop.
Why can't they access the
Or
bus
can't
stop?
they can't come along the road or get into the road or cross the road. The better person to ask is the person who raised it,
Yeah.
to ask her if she would write exactly what the requirement was.
Yes.
I think,
Okay.
and having identified where
And
it
which
is.
bus stop? Because there must be two, one on each side of the road. I have only seen one.
Yes, I think there is only. I don't know where the one is on the other side, but yeah, I mean I had trouble finding the original one
Yes.
until we got where it
Yeah,
was.
it's between the Deal and the Dover roundabouts.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah.
So
No,
it's-
there's not one on the other side of the road.
no, I don't think there is. So it might be because of the way the bus route goes and comes back in a slightly different way, but I don't understand that either really.
No. I think I must go and have a look. Because I can't see the utility of a
Yeah.
dropped curb by that bus stop.
Yeah.
And it would cost a lot of money, and there are other priorities. But I think I take the point that I should talk to the Sandwich resident and and perhaps go and have a look with her.
Yes.
And see exactly what she's
She
talking about.
knows.
Yes. Okay. And the third item, and I'm sorry, Chris, that I haven't actually had a look at your
That's fine.
email, but perhaps you could tell us about it,
Yeah.
is that there is something going on in Ashford.
Yeah, I found it on Kent Online this morning when I was just looking at the news. Ashford actually have their own scooter club.
And that,
Which
by
sounds
scooters, I thought, oh God, there's electric scooters, which recently knocked over a friend of mine in Canterbury, such that she's permanently in pain. But you mean these scooters?
Yes.
Right.
Mobility scooter riders.
Some of the super is it Sainsbury's have one. Sainsbury's have one.
Have one what?
Have disability scooters in the store. Yeah, Kent Online, Ashford Scooter Club.
Yeah. Yeah, basically complaining about there's not enough drop curbs and pavements are uneven. The bit that did sort of show up a bit to me was right at the end where who was he? Chap from Highways, actually Kent County Council spokesperson said, the Highways team is firmly committed to supporting disabled people to get about and recognise the challenges people with additional needs face. That is why KCC has a mobility action plan which outlines the measures we are taking to allow greater accessibility to roads and pavements in Kent. Our highway stewards regularly inspect our roads and pavements to ensure obstacles are removed and faults such as potholes are identified. We work with the Department for Transport to support district and borough councils as required, including where improvements are suggested by residents via joint transportation boards. Drop curbs are an important part of the pedestrian network, and KCC has committed a sum of money to install dropped curbs where required according to an agreed set of priorities. Additionally, people can visit the highways to report problems themselves. So they're quite happy to say, oh yes, we've got money.
Brilliant.
Which I thought
And
was
why
very nice.
didn't we know about this? That's my big bubble above my head. But we do know, thanks to Chris. So I think I should write to whoever this highways person is. Is the name given?
No, it just says a Kent County spokesperson. Kent Council spokesperson said.
And this is where we came in right at the beginning when I said if the government has a commitment to access for the disabled, then they must have asked each county council to set up funding to deal with it.
Yes.
And there must be a drip feed, one assumes, from central government, and I was told no. But then there must be. You can't.
Well, I mean, it may be on the Kent County Council website.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll have a look there. My only concern is that I know that a fellow councillor recently got smacked on the wrist by the Kent County Council councillor for this area for writing directly to an officer at Kent County Council without going through the KCC councillor.
We had a few more levels of bureaucracy.
I don't see how anyone can do that. I mean, a Sandwich Town Council is here to represent the residents. So if there is an issue, by all means copy the Kent County Councillor, copy the MP. I don't care who people copy, but you can go. Yes. You must have the right to go direct to an officer.
Well, particularly if the officer's gone public with this statement.
I did it with the DDC officer for litter.
Right.
I went directly there.
And you didn't get smacked on the wrist?
No, I didn't.
Well, that's
But then I'm not a Sandwich Town Council.
No.
And maybe this particular officer would like to come down and actually
advise us
and advise on
that
what can be done.
A brilliant idea. A brilliant idea.
As we get, it's a good way of promoting Sandwich for people with buggers and disabled.
Exactly. Okay, so I will try and find out more about this. I will write to the officer. I can find out who it is, maybe through the journalist, and copy to the KCC councillor for Sandwich, and invite the officer to come to talk to us and look around the town and see what the problem is. Because I would have thought it was, the problem in Sandwich is more acute than almost anywhere else actually in Kent. And obviously we want to promote the town and one of the long distant, far off objectives I have is that Sandwich becomes an example of best practice. And you can get awards for being disability friendly and so on. And that would be brilliant if we could do it. That's a long way off. But I think that's a very good idea. So that's another action point for me. Anything else?
And if, okay.
What?
I was just thinking, if you're not allowed, if you write a letter as a resident,
You'll do it. Or Chris.
Yeah, Chris can do it.
I was going to say, they put on there, you
Yes.
can just go straight to our website and report problems.
Right.
So really, you could go straight to their website and ask a question. Excuse me,
Yes.
this is the,
Yes.
they've identified this as a problem, what you
Well,
can do
maybe
about
you
it.
should do
Yes.
that, Chris.
Yeah.
And I will independently write. And
So
we'll see.
Good.
Yes.
Good.
Okay. Is there anything else? And I look forward to having the opportunity to look at the recording so that I can write the minutes. We need to set another date, but of course it's very difficult. I mean, the thing is we set dates and then the councillors suddenly find they've got something else to do.
Yeah. Do you want to say, if you want one in a month's time or something, do you?
Yes.
I mean, we agreed this morning, is it 12th? 14th of October.
Of November.
Sorry, of November, the year's just disappearing.
Yes.
Yeah, of November. So perhaps we need to find out whether Councillor Chandler and Councillor Friend are available then.
Yes.
If not, we just, when are they available?
Yes. Okay, so possibly this time on November the 14th. Okay.